And there he is. Okay. For those of you who don't know who Mr. Farmer is, Mr. Farmer, introduce yourself to those that don't know.
Make sure they can hear me okay. Can you hear me okay?
You're just fine.
Wonderful. Charles Farmer here, former or still, I guess, current sports journalist, depending on how you look at it. Done a couple of different things, sports editor for a number of years with the newspaper in Columbus, Ohio, Columbus Post. Been doing this thing for a long time. Also now working with Boom Squad Sports as well, the reality of sports, and also the Ultimate Sports Network. So sports all day, all the time. Then I got old.
Man about town, bon vivant, that whole 9 yards, right? All right, so we're going to give everybody a little background of what we know about the NCAA tournament and color this with a couple things. One, since I watch sports all the time and I watch basketball all the time, this has been a little bit different season for me. But normally, we'll just say this. The first round usually plays out well for me because I've seen most of the teams play. And most people haven't seen most of the teams play, so you either go chalk or you just kind of guess at a few things. Now, I'm no expert. I'm not saying that. I just have more experience having seen teams play. So the first 32 games, I'm usually 6 losses, 8 losses, something like that in the first 32 games. That's average for me. And again, now this isn't against the spread. So if you're here looking for betting news, you're in the wrong place. I play money line, I pick my bracket, and it doesn't mean I'm going to win my bracket. It means I win the first day or two, usually. And that's when he comes in. So what do you know better than I do in the second round and so on and so forth, or the second weekend or so forth?
So again, this is straight up, right? So it's not about the wagering or the points, and you can do that yourself. We're not going that far. But after the first round, if you want to advance, you want to win your pool, you want to feel good about yourself going into the last days instead of being frustrated watching everybody else have fun, come see me, because that's what we do. We look at the whole overall outlook of the bracket, make very critical decisions based on what we saw, because the first round is only, the first day or whatever, first 2 days, and that's great. But if you really want to go down the line and win some cash, you got to look at it from a different perspective. You got to take chances, but you still got to be smart at the same time. So Frank is your first round guy. You want to win a couple games, cash, feel good about that. But if you want to win the tournament against your fellow friends and bang against them or come close, like finishing in the top 2 of maybe 35 people or winning overall, come see me, because that's what I do.
That seemed like a little backhanded slap there, if I'm not mistaken. That's okay. I can live with that. That's all right. I understand how it works.
That's not true?
It's true. I just said it's true. It's just it's like a slap. Anyway. All right. So here's what I'd like. I'll give me the first weekend. Okay. So the first weekend usually works out well for me. From Sweet 16 on usually works out well for him. And here's what I'm looking for. If this helps you out anything at all, you're looking for a team that A, is playing well. Now that seems like a stupid thing to say, but it makes a lot of sense. So if you've won your conference tournament and say you're in the MAC or the Mid-Atlantic or something like that, if you've won your conference tournament and you're on a roll, that's a good thing. Regular season matters a lot, but if you've done well in your conference tournament and you are playing well at that point, you're only a few days away from playing maybe your best game of the season, look for them. Look for teams that have guards that have been there for 7 years. If you have guards that have played for a while, they don't get rattled by the big school. They've played against them in holiday tournaments. They've played against them someplace, especially if they've transferred from someplace else. Look for teams that have guards that are seasoned, ready to play. Not to say the flash in the pan with a lot of talent can't get you there, but if you have guards that know what they're doing, they're going to make clutch plays, not just at the end of the game, but at the beginning of the game, the middle of the game as well. Because a point here, a point there, a turnover here, a turnover there means a lot, whether it's, with the last 30 seconds of the game or it's in the, 2 minutes left in the first quarter. So if you have solid guards, you're great. The next thing you look for is post play. More than post play, post presence. If you have a big guy that can dominate the middle, great. But if you have a big guy that can keep other people from dominating the middle, that's even better. A perfect example, I'm going back a generation or two, but I picked a Bradley team a few years ago that had Patrick O'Bryant playing center. Not only was he good offensively, but you couldn't score against him defensively at that particular point in time. And they made a nice little run. If you have a rim protector or a solid post defender, you're in good shape. And then the other thing is coaching. Don't lay it all on the seasoned coach. Lay it on the coach that's innovative, that's excited. Not necessarily they play on energetic nature and they play on enthusiasm, but their coach is like, wow, we're in the dance, let's go. And he's energized to play. It looks like he wants to play the game himself. So sometimes the old, venerable guy that's been at the school for 37 years, it's ho-hum for him. But it's the coach that has it under control, but he's still excited. A Shaka Smart at VCU, for example. It is like, this is my chance, we're going to roll. Not just the guy that's like, well, we're excited to be here. It's the guy that's like, we're excited to be here, and I know what to do. And when you hear the interview with the coach, and you're going to hear a lot of these things throughout the course of the week. When you hear the interview with the coach, and the coach is excited, but it sounds like he has a plan, grow with him. Chuck?
Yeah, part of it too, though, is I think that it's important to understand, you got to understand matchups make everything, right? So it's important to find out if you're going to pick an upset, you need to look at a team to see whether or not they're capable. Have they played against a team that is decent, a bigger program? So if you're going to pull an upset, you have to look at it and say, well, who has this team played? Maybe look at their records. And again, what Frank said about playing well is very important, because you want a team that can make a run, like maybe win 3-4 games in a row and not have a problem with it. But they can come in, if they've been losing a lot, you might go, you might be skeptical because they may not have a run in them. They might win a game or two, or maybe one game, and then they go out the second round. Because when a team's on the road, it's like getting hot. You start to build momentum, and you really start to feel good about yourself. So each contest gets bigger, but the confidence grows for those teams that continue to win because they're not afraid of it. The one thing we had last year, I think, was a little different. We don't have that this year. Was we really didn't have anybody that was undefeated. And last year when Gonzaga was undefeated, then they had that monster on their back. They ran all the way through the season. And then at some point they were going to have to be tested. And they were finally tested by UCLA in the Final Four. And then when they got to the finals versus Baylor, they were playing almost like not to lose. They had the talent. They were good enough, probably were the best team in the country, but they were playing not to lose because of the scare they received from UCLA. Well, Baylor, on the other hand, had nothing to lose. They said, we just come out, we press them, we play, basically UCLA was feeling like, at that point or they're feeling like we're, maybe a couple of jumpers away from, UCLA could have got us after UCLA had that dramatic win to get there in the first place. But that's how it was. So they're playing not to lose, and Baylor had nothing to lose. So they jumped way out, had a good time, pressed, forced turnovers. And when you have never lost before, start looking around like, is this the time? Is this the time? And it's hard. Right. It's hard for a coach to come back in and get realist players back in so they can gain their composure. And if you go back and watch that championship game, Gonzaga, with all the talent they have, never regained their composure. Right. And Baylor just kept attacking. And that's what their defense allowed them to do that. But we're going to see I could talk about this forever. We're going to have a lot of more matchups, and we'll talk about that too as we move forward. But those are things you need to look at. And again, I'll say this to you, and Frank kind of touched on a little bit, but it would help to pay attention to teams that play defense. If you come in with a team, I know there's a couple of teams in here that they say shoot threes all the time and they run up and down and try to score 127 points. I've never seen a team win that way. Never seen a team in the NCAA tournament that just comes in and run like that and win. Yeah, go ahead.
Florida Gulf Coast a couple of years ago.
But did they win it all?
No, I'm not saying win it all, but they made a run. So yes, you're right.
They made a run.
They're gonna run into that brick wall at some point, right?
People are trying to win money. If you're trying to win money, you need a team that's gonna play some defense. So yes, Florida Gulf Coast, everybody was enamored by it, and Frank was feeling real good, and he got all excited. But when it came to the real deal of advancing on to like the Sweet 16, where just by the way, just FYI, this is how we talk about basketball. We all like to see people, we've seen teams run up and down the court. We like to see points scored. We don't like old school basketball where the ball is held and it's low scoring and stuff like that too, and scare you to death. Everybody likes points. That's why the NBA's changed, because they don't play defense anymore. But when you play basketball on this level, and the higher the stakes are and the closer you get to the championship, defense is paramount. It's very important at some point. It's going to be defense is important at one level, or it might be a couple moments in the game where a play happens. You go, oh man, if they wouldn't have done this or that. So that's why defense is important, because the game turns into what we call half-court basketball. You can't run all those minutes and just run up and down the court, floor to coast, what have you, all the time. At some point, you're going to have to learn how to play half-court basketball. And it behooves you to learn a team to know how to play defense, because it's helpful. Because let's say, for instance, and I get off this point very quickly, let's say, for instance, the team that you're watching shooting all those threes and averaging 92 points a game, like an Iowa that likes to run up and down, you have a bad game where you don't shoot well. What else are you going to do to change or make in-game modifications or changes to win the game? So you're not having a good day shooting. So now you're only going to maybe score 62 points instead of 92. How do you win that game? What other things are you going to do to make a difference to ensure that you move on to the next round? That's the key to defense.
And to add to that, there's another thing, a component that you don't think about when you're sitting on this end. And the component is simple. The first week or the first couple of games, you can have the greatest scouting report you want, but it's a scouting report against apples versus oranges. You can scout and look at all film that you want from Colgate playing Columbia or Colgate playing Niagara. That's all fine and good. You haven't seen Colgate play against the teams they're going to play against. So your scouters look a little bit different for the first couple of days. Now you get to the weekend, and then the Sweet 16, you've got a full body work of them playing in the tournament. And so use the Florida Gulf Coast example. We've seen them run and dunk in Lob City and all that. We've now seen a full body of work of how they do that. Now we're going to make adjustments how to stop that. And they're going to continue to play their brand of ball because that's what got them there. But if you're the team that gets them later, you go, aha, I see this. 23 comes off the back screen, he does this, we'll just cut that down. They want to get out early and run, we'll jam the outlet pass. You start seeing tendencies of what they can do, but when you're watching them play, this is the problem, or I won't say problem. This is why those Princeton teams way back in the day were so effective. And you think, well, how do they not be that dominant, even they were fairly dominant, in the Ivy League as opposed to when they got into the NCAA tournament? Because you weren't watching them play other NCAA tournament teams. Princeton against Georgetown is a lot different than Princeton playing against Brown. You know, Brown has seen them for the last 7 years, and they know what they're going to do, so the backdoor cut doesn't work. When they play against the Georgetown, they're like, oh, well, whoops, where'd the guy go? They're used to playing, Georgetown's used to playing their way, and Princeton plays a different way. And when you scout them, they don't run those plays, or they don't run them as effectively because the teams they've played through the conference season usually know how to counteract what they're doing. So the fun of this is to say, how does your style come out against their style? Or even better yet, how does your style work for you as opposed to how it would work for somebody else? So again, that's why the first couple of rounds, the Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday games are so exciting, because even as a coach, you really don't know what you're going to see. You might think you know what you're going to see, but you really don't know. And then as you move on, now you have a chance to button it down. So you play on Saturday, or your opponent played on Saturday. You have until the following Thursday to break film down and really get into it and figure out what they did for the last couple of days. And as any coach will tell you, you don't make too many adjustments off of successful things. You make adjustments off of things that don't work. If your play is working and it's been working, you're going to keep running that play. You might make modifications to it, but you're going to keep running that play. So once people see you have a chance to break you down, things change a little bit. All right, let's get into some picks, or at least an idea. Anything that just jumps out at you like this was a bad seeding job, or it doesn't look right.
I don't know about bad seeding. I didn't really see a lot of that this time. I mean, normally
Right.
you see something, except for maybe the factor that maybe thought Xavier might get in.
Right.
I'm surprised they keep trying to understand how Notre Dame got in. And I looked at their schedule and I saw, what they've been done, who they beat, who they lost to. But I thought Xavier might replace them. And I also really thought Dayton would replace them.
Right.
When you look at Dayton beat Kansas earlier in the year. They had some quality wins. But when I looked at Notre Dame's strength of schedule and things of that nature, I didn't really see anything that jumped out to me. But it's going to be very interesting. Off the top of my head, I think Arizona can make a long run by the way that the bracket is set up. That's one of the things that stood out to me. And it could be very difficult for if they ever try to make it. I think in order for Duke to make it to the Sweet 16 or the first couple rounds, they're going to have to really come play well because they have I think that area, their region in the West, their particular bracket, that section is really loaded, and they can be tested by teams that play defense, play half court, are more physical than they want to be, and it can be a problem.
I think with Duke, what we're seeing, first of all, just the exact opposite of what we said. They're not playing solid right now. They're not playing their best ball right now. And I think, and this is a tough thing to say, they want to do so well for Coach K that they're playing on emotion instead of with emotion. Now, I heard someone say that a while ago, and I wasn't quite sure what it meant because I said, it's the same thing. But it's true. You can play with emotion and enhance what you're doing. But if you're playing just solely on emotion and that's it, then emotion's going to go away. A turnover here and you go, blah, a missed shot there, everything just kind of falls apart on you. And I've seen that happen to them to where they're not playing the game, they're playing for somebody. And that's all fine and good, but they're not playing cohesive, solid basketball. And again, you're looking at whether it's Davidson or Michigan State, that looks like an upset. Coming out of that, Texas Tech, I'm assuming Texas Tech is going to beat Montana State or Alabama or whatever. That looks like that would be another game. Now, again, should they get past Cal State Fullerton? Probably. Sometimes it's just when the rubber hits the road, you're that much better than the other team no matter what they do. But after that, it can be kind of tough. Looking at a couple other things, and again, I always look at the games that aren't really upset games, but the 8-9 games, the 7-10 games, those kind of things, where you look at it and say, they've got this flipped around the wrong way. And the one that I look at that I think they've got backwards is the North Carolina Marquette game, the 8-9 game in the East. I think that should be flipped around. Marquette should be the higher seed. North Carolina made some nice work at the end of the season, but they, I saw games where they just got destroyed. And looking at Marquette, again, you throw in the Shaka Smart example again, he's got something to prove again. I don't know that he had anything. Not that he didn't have anything to prove at Texas, but it was a different thing. Now he's like, okay, I'm back. I'm going to show you guys. I've got hair. I'm going to show you guys how this is done. So there's a game that I look at and go, all right, that's pretty cool. Virginia Tech against Texas. Virginia Tech just loaded up and won the ACC, playing well at the right time. And Texas is not always stable, I guess is the best way of putting it. So there's a game where something could happen. And again, we'll get into these things a little bit more in specifics later, but there are a couple of games like that where you just say, there's something that could happen here early. And then there are a couple that I'll probably kind of waffle on, and the team that's the higher seed or lower seeded team, will win and go on a roll and get them to the Elite Eight because they've figured out what had to be done, and that first round tough game is going to help them. So any locks that you have, Charles? Anybody you say, no matter what they do, they're at least making the Final Four?
Ooh, see, that's hard. I don't know if there's anybody out there like that. Maybe if I had to choose a lock like that, it probably would be Gonzaga.
Okay.
I'm looking at them because they're all coming out the West, and you have Memphis over there. You got Arkansas. Alabama is the number 6 seed. Texas Tech, if they make it through, they're the 3rd seed. Duke is the number 2 seed, and I think they're in the bottom of it. But I like Gonzaga. I think that they are in a position where they're kind of angry, right? They're the guys that came back last year with Timmy and some other guys. They are really feeling themselves. You got the big freshman over there doing this thing, and I think they're gonna come together. They're playing with a chip on their shoulder, And with that being said, it's going to take a monumental effort for a team to beat them. And where they're at right now, they're going to play some really smart, good basketball, and they're going to try to make a run. They're going to try to be quiet about it, even though they're number one seed. Right now, they know what it's like to lose. And I think that's going to help their coach as well. It's going to help them overall. So I think Gonzaga, the other one, if I had to choose another one, that was probably, I wouldn't say a lock, but as close as a lock you're going to get. But there's some teams that can challenge them. Probably would be Arizona. I like Arizona a lot. I like them a lot. But there's some possibilities down the road. Depends on if Villanova can make it out the way, right? That's the one team that I think could give them fits. It depends on if Houston wins their game against UAB, the 5 seed. Houston on a good day with the little crazy guards and putting pressure to make some things happen for Arizona. But that's a lot of what ifs. But Arizona's talented enough this year. They believe in themselves. They have something to prove because they lost their coach, Coach Miller. They have a new coach, a lot of new things for them. And I think they're in the process of saying, we want to prove that we're really that good. And for them to go through their conference the way that they did, defeating the likes of the favorites like UCLA and USC and proving that they're still on top of the Pac-12 heap says a lot. So right now I say Gonzaga and maybe Arizona. The rest of it is kind of a little shaky out there.
Okay, well, Mr. Magnus is asking us about Jacksonville State, and here's something I like there, and that's a very good point. I love what Bruce Pearl does, but sometimes Bruce Pearl, this is again the playing with emotion, playing with that edge that we are going to go out there and outwill them. If Jacksonville State can go out and punch them in the face early, that all goes away because now there's doubt because you're not playing with this is who we are, this is who we thought we were. We're playing with this, we're pumping ourselves up, and once you get pumped up and you get deflated, it could go away. And remember, too, Jacksonville State's playing for something else. They're not supposed to be here. Remember that. They didn't win their conference. Bellarmine won their conference. So they got in by the back door. They're looking to prove something. I think they're really looking to prove something. Like, look, I know we belong here. Let's go out and do it. Now, again, it depends on how you get started. In these games, it's how you get started. If you come out and you don't back down and you use that, again, we're also talking about emotion, but it's also, look, we deserve to be here. Some teams are just happy to be there. I don't think this team is happy to be there. I think they're mad that they lost their conference final and then they still got in. Okay, we got a second chance to do something because most people don't lose their last game and then get into the tournament. So they're looking at in a lower mid-major fashion. So they're looking to prove something. Yeah.
Let me throw one other thing in there real quick.
Sure.
You mentioned about Jacksonville State. They have the ability to score. They score. They can score points, and they're going to have to play a lot of defense. The one thing they had to do is they had to overcome the factor that they're a smaller school and they're playing against one of the top teams in the country. Auburn at times can be nasty as heck. They can cause major damage. They have some very talented players. They got a definite pro in Smith right over there making things happen, and he close to like player of the year or whatnot, and definitely gonna be a first round pick in the draft, in the NBA draft. So you have to overcome the talent, and you had to catch Auburn to a point where they're having a bad day shooting, because we all know that in order to beat a team like that, like Jacksonville State is going to have to either force bad decisions, force a bad field goal percentage based on their defense, the way they come at you. Because when we look at put it on paper, Jacksonville State is really trailing Auburn when it comes to talent. But you looked at the paper, and you watch the matchup, you go, oh man, they don't have a chance in hell. But that's what's lovely about the tournament. So Bruce Pearl, I guarantee you, is really fired up. And then the factor that they didn't just run through the conference tournament, Bruce Pearl is going to have them on edge, because it's like, you want to finish like this? We've done well all year long, flirting with being one of the top teams in the country. We end up with a number 2 seed. And now it's time for us to prove that we're one of the best teams in the country. So it's definitely going to be an uphill battle for Jacksonville State. But the beautiful thing about the tournament, take care of the ball, eliminate your mistakes, put the big giant and make on the pedestal, make them nervous, put them back, have them thinking about too much, anything is possible. But if I had to look at it right now, I mean, you kind of go with Auburn simply because they took a loss in the conference tournament.
I'm thinking about that. They're looking at it like we should be here. We should do this. And looking at, the thing that they could do, bring Artis Gilmore off the broadcast booth and slap him in the game, see if that does anything. So, but let
me ask you a question too. But the other thing I want to say real quick is, let's be realistic too. If you look at the percentages, how many 15 seeds have beat the 2? I mean, yeah. So, and I know we've had that the last couple of years, but the real legitimate 15 beating the 2 is when I remember when Hampton won, was a 15. And
right.
So there's been some other situations, but Auburn is really a good team. So if you're looking for an upset, you might want to look somewhere else. Who's that gentleman that was looking for something?
Theodore.
Who?
Theodore.
Okay, yeah. So Theodore, yeah, you might want to look otherwise in that 2 and 15, bro. Somewhere else to kind of put your money right now. I'm not mad at you. Anything is possible, but if you want to advance to the next day, you might want to let at least Auburn have one game before you start putting them out the tournament.
But the thing about the bracket is you do have to take chances on occasion, because if you're all picking the chalk, you're not all going to win. And if you're all picking the same games, you're in trouble. So, and the thing about most of these 2-15 games that have happened is that most people haven't picked them because it's a 2-15 game. So you don't expect it to happen. But if you look at little subtle things here and there, it might be something where you go, hey, this might happen. Now, my take on it is this. This is what I've seen from Bruce Pearl. In my opinion, this isn't a fact. This is my opinion on Bruce Pearl through every place that he's been. His teams, on occasion, not every week, not every game, but his teams on occasion, and most teams do as well. But because it's such an emotional thing, when he's at Tennessee, the same thing. Because it's such an emotional thing, sometimes they just fall flat. And they fall flat and stay flat. And if you can get up on them right away and they have that flat spot, you can take them. Now, I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying it's a possibility because of the pattern and the history I've seen from a Bruce Pearl team. Great coach, usually does a pretty good job. But on occasion, when it's not there, he doesn't have a plan, or I shouldn't say doesn't have a plan B. Plan B doesn't work because they just are flat and they stay flat and that's it. And everyone's looking at each other like, well, what do we do now? Don't know. So it is a possibility. That was one of those I was going to take.
So that's a possibility. But let me ask you that question. Are you going to take it? Because that's what Theodore wants to know. Are you going to take it?
Yeah, I'm going to take it.
Okay, then. That's what he wants to know. Theodore don't want to know about you waffling back and forth. Theodore wants to know. So, Theodore, I'm going to throw that at you. I'm going to take Auburn because I think they're the better team. I've seen Jacksonville State. The other thing, too, what Frank mentioned about where Auburn kind of waffles, what's going to happen, whether or not they're going to be ready. If I was to say I'm going to take them to waffle, I would be looking at the next game. And the next game would be particularly if USC defeats the 10 seed Miami. USC is basically set to defeat a team like Auburn because they matched them up physically. They have everything that Auburn brings to the table as a 2 seed. USC can match them as well. Only thing USC does is at times they have trouble like Auburn does with being consistent. But man for man, you got the other Mobley brother. There's going to be a first-round pick. They have a number of they have a loaded roster. They're big. They can shoot. They run. They get up and down. They play defense. They could become a matchup nightmare for Auburn. But I think that if they can win past Miami, and Miami with their coach is very scrappy, we'll have to see if they make it through. That would be the team that I think would kind of give them some problems. But again, this is all our opinions. I'm gonna roll with Auburn to make it past the first round.
And that's the smart. I wouldn't call it safe pick. That's the smart pick. But again, I myself see something there. Another one that I think is it could be, and they've mentioned this on the air. I think it was Seth Davis said the winner of the Wyoming Indiana game versus St. Mary's. I think St. Mary's is a tight squad. As a 5 seed, they're a tight squad. But for some reason, they don't get the respect they deserve. And part of that is because they get to this point and they don't play like they're the top team in their conference. And let's face it, a top conference in the United States. So if it's Wyoming, I don't know. I haven't seen enough Wyoming to be able to say anything. But Indiana, they've got one player that if he's on, that can dominate this game. It's Trace Jackson, Davis Young, whatever the hell his name is. He's got a chance to dominate this game. So there's a game right there from a play-in game. Now, again, we're also talking about Indiana as a play-in participant. They have a chance. I'm not saying it's a lock. I'd have to see how they play come Tuesday in Dayton. Once they come out of that, if they played well, then I'd put them up there and say that's an upset. But, that's one of those that's a possibility. A couple other ones that just jumped out at me off the top of my head. Murray State, San Francisco. Murray State's tough. Murray State is tough, but San Francisco is no joke. So that could be an interesting game right there. I like Chattanooga, Illinois. I like Chattanooga over Illinois. I'm not sold on Illinois. I haven't been sold on them all year. I think that they're another team that when it goes bad fast. And I don't know that they have the catch-up capability to be able to catch up if Chattanooga can fly by them at the start of the game. So that's another game where I look at it's like, that's a possibility, a possibility. Not saying it's a lock, but it's a possibility. And again, when you're trying to craft your bracket a little bit differently than everybody else, you got to look at some of these games and think, well, just maybe something could happen. So there are a couple of them there off the top of my head. We'll get into a little more deeper in a second. Anything else that jumps out that you say, this game is a mismatch regardless of seeding, and whether it's the underdog is going to pull an upset or the favorite is just, no matter what happens, they're just going to slam past them and go another couple of games?
Well, I'm going to go back to the Indiana-Wyoming game. And
okay.
I'm telling you, because I live in Big Ten country. So I live in Ohio. I watched Indiana all throughout the season. They came off a very tough loss. So they thought they were going to make it to the Big Ten final. They came off a very tough loss, but they won a very interesting game before their losing. So they lost to Iowa, right, which is the eventual Big Ten champion.
Right.
But the one thing about Indiana, they have a hard-nosed coach, right? And Coach Mike Woodson used to be a hard-nosed, very physical NBA player. And they kind of go by the way they coach his style. They're very tough. Everybody talks about Davis, and he's a very special talent. But one thing they don't talk about is the fact that Indiana features a very big physical team. The reason why I know that is because I watched them play Ohio State a couple of times, and Ohio State has issues with physical teams. Indiana, they have guards that can shoot, they get up and down, and when they're on a roll, they can be a daggone nightmare. Again, when they did not make it to the conference tournament, to the final, it wasn't because they didn't play well. It was just that they were kind of beat by a better team that was better that night. So when you put them on the playing game against a Wyoming team who has done well, and it's first time in a long time since they've been there, they're going to have to play lights out to beat Indiana. And then you have another 5 seed with St. Mary's doing their thing. That's all well and good, but you better be ready because Indiana is physical. They play nasty basketball. They like to push you. They like to be disruptive. And you're going to have to be able to handle it. And if you have never been in that position before, and I'm not saying St. Mary's at 5 does not deserve their seed because of the record speaks for itself. That's how you can go off of. You win your conference, you deserve to be up there because your regular season does mean for something. But when you're coming out the Big Ten, you think about Big Ten has 9 teams coming out of the conference. And it was literally war oftentimes. With teams even like Nebraska beating Ohio State and some other teams as well. It was just real hard in that mix. These teams often are battle-tested. And Indiana is definitely battle-tested. And you just don't want to see them. And that's why I think Indiana can make a move. You also mentioned about Illinois and Chattanooga. Chattanooga, and I wanted to find this out, but I think I got my answer. The one thing that can allow maybe Chattanooga to make a move or a run is Illinois goes as Kofi Cockburn goes, okay? Right. He's the main guy. I watched him last year. I had Illinois winning the national championship last year, and Loyola Chicago just took him down. But by the way, I won my tournament because I did not choose Gonzaga to win the tournament. Okay. So I already knew it. And I still won, even though my team didn't win. But getting back to the point. So I've been watching Illinois for a long time. So Kofi Cockburn is like this. He's a dominant force inside, and he pushes people around. He's a bully. And they have decent guards, and they can get up and down a little bit. They don't play as well as they could. They have a couple guys that have been out and injured, and it would have made them better. But he's a force. So Cockburn can come through, and he can dominate a game. But if you have a center or a person of almost equal size, and I think Chattanooga has a couple big guys that can bang with him and not be intimidated, then they can make a push and a run. And that might be what people are looking at in regards to Chattanooga versus Illinois. And if Illinois does not shoot the ball well, they start to have problems. Right. So that could be an issue. But if they're on, they're a nightmare. And Cockburn is just he'll try to score 40. That's what he has to do. He doesn't care. It's like, I'm not saying he's great as Will Chamberlain, but he's a very dominant force. But the times that they have struggled, they struggle because they've been able to match up with Cockburn and play off of him a little bit. So he's the key to whether or not they move forward. Question is whether or not Chattanooga, who does have a little size and can move, can they play that great game? Or will they feel the pressure of playing in the big game? Those are some other factors when you look at it from that standpoint.
Well, I look at it this way, and this is not a perfect scenario, but I look at it as Cockroach Coburn, how they pronounce his name. He's one of those guys that he's a dominant player from 5 feet in. Now, this is a bad comparison. It's the best comparison I can make. If you're going to play, let's look at the Luca Garza from Iowa last year. You couldn't play him from 5 feet in. He could step out to 12 feet. He could step out to 13 feet. He could step out to 22 feet. You had to guard him. If you can make Coburn have to make plays outside of 5 feet, you've got a chance. Easier said than done, but if you try and front him and try and be physical with him, he's going to catch and dunk on you all night. But if you make him shoot his little turnaround jumper or his little jump hook from 6 feet out, he's not shooting 80% on that shot. So then you've got him throwing up shots, making passes, making plays that's not in his repertoire. And if you can make him do that, again, easier said than done, he may get his 30 or 25 or whatever, but it doesn't get him that easy, and the rest of the team isn't involved. If you can do that, you're okay. That's not an easy task, but that's the way you have to play him. And like you said, I think they've got somebody that can make that happen. They can at least not have to play on top of him. They can play behind him, wall up, make him have to go over people, and use skill instead of might. And if they can do that, I think it's a pretty easy game because what you said, their shooters aren't going to shoot that well, and they can roll through it from there. But again, there's a lot of things that have to happen. And here's what we get. This is exactly what I was saying earlier. You have the opportunity, if you are the lower seed, to scout them at their best and what they're going to do to you. If you're the higher seed, well, I've got it backwards. If you're the higher seed, you get to scout the lower seed and say, what did they do well against this? What did they do poorly against this? But if you're the lower seed scouting a higher seed, you're like, I'm just going to see them playing against their competition. Now, we were talking about St. Mary's playing in the WCC. You can see them play against San Francisco. You can see them play against Gonzaga, teams of the tournament. So it's kind of apples to apples that way. But if you're talking Chattanooga, you don't really know what you saw because they were playing against other quote-unquote inferior competition. What is it that they're going to do when they're faced against you? And they may come up with something completely different. So I like that matchup. I like the way it goes, not for Illinois, unfortunately, but for the other squad. And there are a lot of things that can happen. We've been asked about UConn. What do you think of UConn, Charles?
Wow, UConn. Where are they at? Tell me where they're at. They're
the 5 seed or the 6 seed, I believe.
5 seed, 6 seed. And what division?
Let me double check that. I think they're in the. I haven't committed to memory. They're the 5 seed in the West.
Okay, 5
playing
seed.
against New Mexico State.
Okay. There we go. New Mexico State is always trouble because they like to get up and down. They put pressure on you. But UConn plays kind of old school Big East basketball, right?
Mm-hmm, right.
Like they're very physical. So New Mexico State would need to use their guards and come out of that. And as a 12 seed, it's hard, but they're going to be really amped up because they really haven't been around like that, or this is a great opportunity for them. So they have nothing to lose. But I guess my point here is I like UConn in this matchup because of the fact of their resume and the conferences they played in. So they played against top-notch teams. They're going to play hard. They're going to play solid defense. They're going to come at you. They want to make it a nasty game so you don't get up and down. So I like UConn from that standpoint. The only problem is when they start matching up with athletes, and then if Arkansas was to make a move and beat Belt was a Vermont, and they faced them in the next round, it would be a problem for UConn because they have the athletes too, and Arkansas still like to play that instead of 40 minutes of hell, they play about 15 minutes of hell. But they play with it on defense. They play with it where they
ball.
They like to be disruptive.
Right.
And I think that style could cause problems for UConn. I'm not sure if New Mexico State has the talent or the athletes to make that happen against them. So that's how I was looking at UConn. I would give them the benefit of the doubt based on what they've done in their conference.
Well, to me, this is a referendum of the Big East. This is the Big East saying we're back. We haven't been the Big East for a while. This is saying we're back. And particularly for Danny Hurley, or Dan Hurley as we're calling him now, dating myself when he was a player. But this is I'm a good coach. I'm a solid coach. I'm not just my daddy's son. I know what I'm doing here. And with Providence, with Seton Hall, with Creighton, you've got teams in the Big East that are like, we need to prove that we're the big boy on the block again. We are a basketball conference. That's what we were. That's what we probably should always been. No offense to how they decided to grow it and bring it into the football teams. It's like, we are a basketball conference, and dadgummit, we're going to show it this year. And I think that one of the leaders of that are going to be Providence and UConn. And UConn, having seen them play, what I think, just what you said, we got back to, Danny Hurley got back to old school Big East basketball with new school ideals and athletes. But we're just going to go be physical. We're not going to take plays off. We're not going to be soft around the bucket. We're going to make sure that you come at us. And if New Mexico State can handle that, they've got a chance. But I don't think that they're going to be allowed to get into the game. And again, this is what we've been talking about before. Does the favorite team allow you to get into the game? I don't think UConn's going to allow that to happen. I think that they're going to come out hard, they're going to come out strong, and they're going to lay down the law right away. And if they do that, I'm sorry about New Mexico State's luck, because this could get ugly. Because as good as New Mexico State has shown that they are over the course of the season, they're in for I think for a beatdown in this one. I really do. And again, looking at the rest of the Big East, there are a couple of teams. Providence, maybe. This again, Ed Cooley's like, I've been at this for 5,000 years. I'm going to show you clowns that this is who we are. This is what we deserve to be. And Seton Hall, same thing. This is something that we do. Marquette, this is what we're doing. There are a lot of teams now that you look at from the Big East, and I think there are at least, and I'd have to go back and do the math on it, at least 3 or 4, maybe 5 Big East teams that could make it to the Sweet 16.
Yeah. One of the other games that I was looking at, and you mentioned about, do I see anything in regards to upsets? The game that really it just glared to me, because a lot of people don't know, is in the South, the 6-11 matchup. That's Colorado versus Michigan. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people didn't think Michigan deserved to be in there because of the record and Juwan Howard and whatnot, and his antics. But then I'm like, how can you not have Juwan in the tournament? Anyway, but they put them in. But I think the strength of schedule that they had really helped them. Playing in the Big Ten helped them, and they won some big games. And when they're at full capacity with Hunter Dickinson, the center, they cause problems. I watched them against Ohio State. They kind of, at some point, was able to take Ohio State down once, even without Hunter Dickinson. But at full capacity, they're very physical. They like to get up and down. They are a lively bunch. They kind of play off of the energy of their coach. Right. And considering what they've been through lately with the slap of the coach in Wisconsin and all of the drama that surrounded Michigan basketball, and considering that they kind of held their own despite all that drama going on, I think they're ripe to make a move. And I think they're going to play with a lot of aggression. If Colorado's making shots and doing some things that match up well, might be a different story. But I think Michigan is going to come in and go like, you know what? We're Big Ten basketball. And I think they're going to have a good shot to do that, where they have enough talent, I think, to hang with Colorado.
Well, I'm going to say things, and I don't normally correct you on the air, but as an Ohio State guy, you have to say it's Colorado State, not just Colorado. Okay. There is a difference.
Is it Colorado State?
Yeah. And you're going to have some people pissed off at you because you got the wrong one.
Well, let me just say this first of all, for those that, so I can correct myself, my bracket didn't go that far. It only said Colorado. So it didn't say Colorado State, but it's Colorado State?
It's Colorado State, yeah.
All right, well, let me make that correction now, because I thought it was a Colorado State, Colorado. So even more now, Colorado State. Even more that you said that, because I'm thinking Colorado. And I know, no disrespect to Colorado State, but they're the 6th seed, but it's almost like watching St. Mary's at 5.
Right, exactly.
Right. Yeah, so let me correct that. Colorado State at 6th seed. You guys correct. I'm glad you corrected me on that, so I didn't sound crazy. And like I said, my sheet only says Colorado, only goes so far when I print it out. Anyway, so even more, what I said, should hold to reason because of the conference that Michigan played and the competition that they played, which when you look at it too, when you look at Michigan's record, it does not impress anybody, right? But the reason why they got in is because strength of schedule, who they beat, and the competition that they played against. That's why not only did they get in, they weren't even in the first 4. So that meant to tell you that the committee felt really good about them,
right,
at an 11 seed for them to get in. And they didn't put them in Dayton for the first 4. So they felt good about what they saw about Michigan at a certain time during the season.
Well, and you mentioned Hunter Dickinson, who at the end of this whole tournament could be the MVP of the tournament. He is that good, that versatile, that big, that strong, all that. Or he can be an afterthought. Because we've seen him play in games where it's like, how the hell are you supposed to stop this guy? And we've seen him play in games like, was he playing tonight? And I don't know whether that's a function of the team, of him, their guard play. I haven't quite put it together yet. But I guarantee you whoever's playing this put it together, and they know what buttons to push to make him be that guy that's just an afterthought. But when he decides, or I don't know if decides, when he plays at full capacity, at full level, he's a nightmare because he's big. He's 7'1". He's strong. He's got nice touch around the hole. He can step out and knock down threes. He can defend. He can block shots. He can do whatever you need him to do. To me, he's the way that the big guys are playing in the NBA now, he's a next level player that can make a long career for himself in the NBA. But he hasn't shown it yet consistently. And so I don't think it's going to happen in this game, but it's a possibility that he's going to be forced to make those kind of plays and be that kind of player down the road. If he's that kind of player, Michigan can make a nice run because they've got nice stuff around him. But when he's not on, it's like they not stand around, but look around for him to do something and he doesn't do anything. So that's going to be tough. Oh, go ahead, please. Go ahead.
Let me throw something in there. And the reason why I want to throw in there is because I think it's really more based on the team.
Okay.
And I said from the beginning of the season, I don't think Michigan uses Hunter Dickinson the right way. He was a dominant player. He came off last season in the last couple of seasons when they made a run, right? He was right in the mix as a young guy, putting in work, looking real good. Now he's an older guy. He's an upperclassman, and you should defer to him. I'm not saying all the time, but you have a lot of guys with talent on that team that I think feel as if they need to take over. They don't defer to him. And if they were to defer to him more often, they'd be a better team. And I know he doesn't always shine all the time, but right. he is consistent when he was allowed to be consistent. The problem with him is because you have other people, I don't know if they've been reading the newspaper clippings or trying to get to the league. I mean, you just have to include a guy that's dominant or your best player on your team. And if they don't force you to do that, instead of looking inside when he clearly has a mismatch, you come down shooting 3-point jumpers.
Right.
That you're not going to win that way. And wanting him to clean it up. That's not how you win basketball games, and it's daggone sure not how you win tournament games.
Well, the comparison I have is it's a Big Ten tournament, but it's also a Big Ten comparison. It's also a South bracket tournament comparison. Number 4, Illinois with Kofi Cockburn, and number 11, Michigan with Hunter Dickinson. Stat-wise and record-wise and all that, it's a push. But if I have to pick one or the other, I'm taking Hunter Dickinson every day of the week. Because Coburn, again, no offense to Coburn, but all he, like you named it right. He's a bully. Now, that's a good thing, but it's bully ball. And if his guards can't get him the ball in the right spot and the defense isn't playing him the wrong way, there's not much he can do about that, and it's game over. Now, it doesn't mean that Illinois can't win, but Coburn's not going to shine if they – let me put it a better way. If you want to take him away, you can. I don't think you can take Dickinson away. He takes himself away. Is that an apt description?
Or I think the team takes him away.
Well, okay, that's another way of putting it. Sure, right.
I think the team takes him away. I don't think it's Dickinson. I think if you go to Dickinson, Dickinson is more stable. So it's not so much that his play, it's his team around him that takes him out of the game. But that's
right.
That's how
right. If he's on and the team's right, you can't really make him do something else. But with Illinois, if you come out and your game plan is, we're not going to let Coburn beat us, you can do that. I don't think you can do that with Michigan, but like you said, the team dictates that, not Hunter Dickinson.
Right.
Okay. All right. So let me look at a couple other things here that I think are interesting, because there are a couple of games here that I think that are just off the wall, could be a great thing, and then it might lead to something else. Here's one of them. Number 5 in the Midwest, Iowa versus number 12, Richmond. Now, again, we've seen Richmond. Basically, if you play ball in the city of Richmond, you got a chance. Whether you're ODU or VC or whoever's in Richmond, if you're in that area, you got a shot because you play some solid ball here. I've talked to some people in the last few weeks about that area of the country, and we may not have a professional team, blah, 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 but we love our ball here. So this is a team, and I saw them play, the Spiders play. They have a chance to be a legitimate team out there. However, Iowa's got the goods right now. So this could be, I think this is a team, this is the winner of this team goes someplace. I can't pick this game, but I can pick the winner of this game goes another couple of games after that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you on that. If I had to choose this game, as you mentioned, Iowa, I would choose Iowa simply because what they came off of. I mean, to go out and do what they did, you beat Purdue, you win the Big Ten title. I mean, something they haven't done a long time. They have a lot of guys that are playing with a chip on their shoulder. They like to score a lot of points. Usually don't see that with Iowa. I mean, they can score 100 points. They'll try to.
In the blink of an eye, right, yeah.
But they're tough enough, and when you look at the leaders on the team, they're tough enough to kind of come out and go, we want to get this done. We want to move forward. And they're playing with a chip on their shoulder, and I think that's where they're going to cause a problem for Richmond, simply because of the fact that Richmond is like, okay, yeah, we're ready, but I was like, we won some games we weren't supposed to win. Nobody had us winning the Big Ten championship coming out in the regular season. So we just beat this team, we beat that team, then we beat a really good Purdue team to win this all, and now you're going to throw Richmond at us? Yeah, I think they have confidence with themselves right now. They're feeling real good. The leader is really just phenomenal with the brother duo. And besides that, they have some other guys that can get up and down and push and play defense. They play with a chip. So I like Iowa. I like them. I'm not going to say it's a lot, but I like them. I think Iowa, as you said, could go far, at least a couple games, because you just don't know what team. I like Providence, but Providence has seemed to be a little shaky at times. And Iowa's like, they've been waiting a couple years to be proved that they're worthwhile, and they're saying this is our year. So I like Iowa.
My thought is that we don't know what the Big East is yet. So those teams, this could be the coming out party for the Big East, but we don't know what the Big East is yet. So, and I may be backtracking what I said earlier, but it's going to have, it's like when we were looking at the Big 12, at least I was looking at the Big 12 last year. And I said, well, Oklahoma State, Texas, they all played against each other and looked good against each other. When they got against other teams, other leagues, like, oh, that didn't fly against this team. That didn't fly against that league. So we're not sure. Now, we started this whole thing off with seasoned guards. You do not have a more seasoned guard than Bohannon, ever.
Yeah.
Ever in the history of NCAA. What is this? Is like his 9th year? He's collecting per diem. He's getting a pension, all that. AARP card, the whole 9 yards, right?
Big shot maker, and then like you said, Keegan Murray is a handful. With the attitude, and he went from a guy that you knew a little bit about, of course, with his brother, but he's now turned himself into probably a lottery pick, just by his attitude.
I barely remember him on last year's squad. I really do. It's like, oh yeah, and I had to say which one of the twins. I don't remember which one he was. To holy smokes, look what this guy can do. So yeah, there's something there. There's something there for that team. But again, it's a Richmond team that it's a possibility. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but it's a possibility. So I'm waffling on that pick, but whoever wins that game, I think is going to go deep. Another Big Ten team, this may not be a surprise because of the way they're seeded, but another Big Ten team that could make some serious damage, I think, is Purdue. Because that Ivy kid can play. Okay? We get that out of the way. But they got two boys inside that can take care of business too.
Yeah.
And we've talked about, and you mentioned it, guard play and interior play. And they've got them both. So that's a team that can make a run.
Yeah, they are. I mean, the Achilles heel for Purdue is they have size on the inside. Ivy tries to take over.
Right.
I think they need to use those big boys even more. Right. Their issue is the defense.
Right.
It don't seem like they had a killer instinct to play defense all the time. Offensively, they run and jump and can score with anybody. You got two big fellas in there. You got the 7-footer that is, it's showing you a lot of things that people go, was it Edie? You got a big fella that he does the basic stuff. He's not going to win a beauty contest with his basketball game, but he catches the ball, he turns, dunks, rebounds, get out, does what he's supposed to do, plays a solid inside post for a big man. But their defense at times gets lackadaisical, and they have problems. And I think if anything that's going to hurt them down the line that they try to advance is their defense. But until they meet a team at that point, who knows how far that's going to be? Because you think about you got Yale, then they maybe play a Kentucky, which would be a hell of a matchup. Play Kentucky like out there in
against a Seablade, that's going to be fun.
Yeah. Like what was that the Sweet 16? Get them out there. Sweet 16. That might be a nice matchup. But until that time, you got to really come and bring it against Purdue because they're big. They can push the ball. They score a lot. They get a little, like I said, last days are going defense sometimes, but they're a handful. Definitely a handful.
All right. So as we wrap this up, and we really wanted to focus, because that's what we have in front of us. So the first couple of games, the first Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday games. We'll revisit everything in another few days and see what's going on. But give me an idea. Well, let me preface this by saying for the people that don't know our history with the NCAA tournament, what we've done with it. We did a show, and I'm going to get the time right. It was about 10 years ago?
Something like that.
Yeah, 10 years ago. We went the previous 32 years, and we basically made a debate of it. The winners and the runners-up of each season, and we put them in a bracket, and we had fun with it. We debated who would win. And our final victor was the UNLV team with Larry, and I'm going to forget which center because I always do that. Larry Johnson, Stacey Augmon, Greg Anthony, Anderson Hunt, and I believe that was that the Butler year or was that the Ackles year? I'm going to forget.
The Butler year.
The Butler year. Okay, so that and they're interchangeable. But anyway, that was a team that beat Duke and beat them handily and made Bobby Hurley go to the bathroom and cry and all that. Okay, but in my mind, and you're going to have maybe a different take on this. The reason that team was we came up with that, and it really wasn't even a final argument. And there it is. It was because there wasn't anyone that could stay with Larry Johnson. Who's this tournament's Larry Johnson?
That's a hard one.
Well, I'm not supposed to give you softballs. Here we're ending the show.
I mean, well, but then I would look at somebody like a Keegan. Keegan has that ability.
Okay.
With Iowa, definitely. A couple guys with Kansas as well.
Blah, blah, I can't pronounce his name. Yeah.
Yeah. Kansas as well. And shoot, Timmy. It's Timmy's time. Okay. It's Timmy's time. I know you got the big fella, the freshman center, but Timmy's been waiting a long time. He's kind of doing just enough to kind of, to be consistent. But if he's going to prove to you that he's worthwhile to play in the league, why he came back for that season to get a little bit more season, this would be a great opportunity for Timmy with Gonzaga to show everybody that he's capable and ready to go. So I'm going to go Timmy.
Okay, what's interesting about how we do things and we listen to each other and play off each other and all that? Before you said that, that was not even going to come into my mind. I wouldn't even have thought about him because I'm looking for someone who's going to be a dominant player who you're going to say, there's nothing we could do with him. But you're right. You're right, because it's been the focus has been on Chet Holmgren before the season started. Mm-hmm. And having watched them play, I saw them play live out here in Las Vegas when Holmgren didn't have that great of a game and faced up against Paulo Bacara or whatever from North Carolina, and that was the better freshman on the floor at that time. Again, early in the season. But they haven't been running things through Timmy as much as they did last year. Mm-hmm. A, because they have another option, and B, because I don't think they've had to. Right. But when push comes to shove, you just said it, when it comes to shove at this particular point in time, maybe not first week, but maybe week 2, you're right. I think he's the one they're going to ride and say, now, big boy, take us there. Mm-hmm. And you're right. I think he's the one that, because he's got such an array of moves, he's unfazed by anything that happens in front of him, usually unfazed by anything that happens in front of him. He can step out and knock down threes. He's not a great defender, but he's a good defender. He does the things that need to be done. And he's got Holmgren behind him cleaning up stuff. Mm-hmm. They've got great guard play. And this kind of, again, there is no way in the world I'm comparing Drew Timme to Larry Johnson. Let's get that straight. But he has all the components around him that he just has to do him. And he does him, I think, better than anybody else that we're going to see. Because the guards are playing great, Nebhard, and they're doing a great job. He's got the Holmgren kid just blossoming, but still willing to be, the Scottie Pippen. He's still willing to be the second banana, if you want to call it that, Robin to his Batman. But he hasn't stepped up. He hasn't had to step up yet to become Batman yet. Right. I think he becomes Batman, not this week, but next week. Good point. That's a very good point.
Thank you.
Well, I give credit where credit is due on occasion.
Oh, I appreciate that.
but as you were mentioning it, though, because I was looking at all these other parts that I was thinking of who would be whom. And as soon as you said that, everybody else's names fell out of my head because there's really nobody. Again, I say maybe Hunter Dickinson, but I don't see them making that kind of run. Right. Tshiebwe reminds me of Coburn, that if you've got a 7-footer, he's not going to be – he's going to get his, 18 and 12, but he's not going to just change the tenor of the game because everyone else is going to have to play. If you can put somebody of size up against him, that's – again, this is the Larry Johnson thing. Larry Johnson gets to the NBA, and suddenly a Marcus Camby that knows how to play with length, it's like, whoops, this wasn't as easy as I thought it was. So if there's that guy out there for Coburn and Tshiebwe, 2 guys that I think people are talking about as being 2 of the dominant players in the league, in the nation right now, I think that they can be shut down, or not shut down, but be slowed down. Looking at the guys that were Naismith candidates, Johnny Davis, and some of those guys, I don't see that they've put themselves in positions to be, the team has put themselves in a position to be that dominant. So yeah, I think you nailed it. I think you nailed it perfectly, and I wasn't going that way. Who's the guard from Villanova? Gillespie.
Right.
I just don't think that, he can affect the game as much, even though Villanova's the second seed. I don't think that's going to happen. So that's a very good call. Very good call.
Thank you.
Yeah. And speaking of which, now let's go to which we're going to close it on this because you made that too easy. Which coach makes well, hey, you got to make it hard on you a little bit. Which coach makes the most difference in this tournament? Good or bad?
Good or bad?
Which coach may, and not again, as a former coach, I hate saying which coach is on the hot seat, but which coach has to coach his ass off for his team to win, or which coach makes the right moves for his team to do better?
I would say I'm going to go two places.
Okay.
And it'll be interesting because one is going to based on one coach is going to try to prove he can coach. And last year they said, he did a phenomenal job. But the real coaching job he's doing this year, we'll find out whether or not he's who we think he is. And I'm going to go directly to Mick Cronin at UCLA.
Okay.
So you have a team, and I know people will say I have a bias because from Ohio. Yeah, I get all that. My friend's going to say that. But last year, UCLA went above and beyond. They surprised some people. Mick Cronin got all the credit, and a lot of the guys that played on his team really showed that they were worthy of preparing for the league and whatnot. This season, it's been a struggle for Mick Cronin to kind of get the attention. And maybe because they feel some kind of way, we're getting our names in the paper, a little bit more luster, and people have seen us. But they struggle, and he's been trying to get them on track ever since. So I say him because of the factor that we know what they're capable of. A couple players came back. Right. We've seen it before. So now it's like, as a coach, how do you motivate them to do that, to get back on track? Because if they do come back and play to the best of their ability, to the potential, reach their potential, they can go far. So when you look at it, you're like, okay, you got Baylor, and it's to the point where they can make it to the 8 easy. Right. I like Baylor, but the way that UCLA is loaded and the kind of players, if Cronin can get them motivated, they can go all the way out to the 16 and the 8. And the other one I would say is just because I never understood what the hell was going on there anyway, and he's going to get the brunt of it because it's like one would say, looking at your talent, if they had a coach that was really together and had them playing well, they would go a lot further, but maybe not because of the way they're set up, because with the seat they're in. But basically say they should be playing better, and they could be more of a legitimate challenge. And that's Memphis. I think Penny Hardaway's team, unfortunately, because of the way they have not played up to the point, that's why they're number 9 seed. And, if they win, they could possibly have to face Gonzaga. I don't think they're ready for that, but they had enough talent on there. And if Penny Hardaway or that different kind of coach could put that all together, they'd probably be in a better position. But it is what it is. So I'm going to say definitely Memphis and Penny Hardaway.
It's time to see whether Penny is a legitimate NCAA coach or if he's just an AAU coach masquerading as a recruiter, masquerading as an NCAA coach.
Yeah. But I think part of that too is I don't think he can coach, but there's a lot of personalities I understand on Memphis. A lot of people have been made promises, and a lot of people have been told, players that is how great they are before they came in because of what they did on AAU. And now you try to gel that together and bring that together and create a chemistry, which they're going to need. Then it's like, what day do you catch them on? Okay, you catch them when they upset somebody, or are we going to watch the team that got blew out by Houston in the conference final?
Right. And add to this, there are a lot of people on that team that already made some money and are poised to make more money. So they may not be thinking about, we need to win this, we need to win that. They're already at that next goal, if you're setting your goal of making a couple of bucks and making a league. Some of them already believe they're there. And some of them might be there, who knows? But that's the problem. They need a kid like the Wiseman kid that just put his head down and played ball a couple of years ago, as opposed to, I'm already there, coach, what can you tell me now?
Yeah.
And that may be a hard look at that, and I'm sorry, but that's the way I see it. And that's seeing it from afar. I'm not inside the program. I don't know what happens on a day-to-day basis. And I've always liked Penny as a player. I think that he handles himself as well as can be in these situations, because sometimes you need to blow off steam and say, don't attack this, don't attack that. But he also has to understand that they built that situation. So yeah, that's a good call. I've narrowed it down to 4. And a couple of them are obvious and a couple of them not so obvious. The first obvious one is Coach Krzyzewski at Duke. He has to coach, and I think he continues to do this, but he has to coach like he's still there for another 3 seasons, 8 seasons, 25 seasons, whatever. This isn't the next loss is his last game. And it's not necessarily that he has to coach that way, but it's that his players have to see that he's coaching that way. The players have to believe that they're playing for the name on the shirt and for a ring, not for Coach K's legacy, not for this, because what I've seen in a couple instances in the last few weeks, it's been way too emotional. It's been way too, oh my goodness, the last game on the home court against North Carolina, it's like, I know you had to have the pomp and circumstance and all that, but how do you play the game after that? It'll be good for them to get out away from Cameron, get out away from ACC country, and just go play ball. But he's got to get them to understand it's not about me, it's about you, and it's about playing Duke basketball. And I don't think at this point, having seen the players and the way they played, they get that just yet. So he's going to have to really step up his game and do one of the best coaching jobs he's ever done. And that may be tough for them to do right now, because I don't think that they're seeing that. The second one is Scott Drew at Baylor. He's got to prove that last year wasn't a fluke without trying to prove that last year wasn't a fluke. Go out and play. Go out and do what you have to do. But you got to do it. And that's going to be tough, because are you the defending champion, or are you just somebody out there trying to win it all? And that's going to be hard for them to do. And he's got to keep them understanding that we're just out here playing for the next game to win it all, not that we're the defending champion. Once you get into this tournament, and people are going to say defending champion Baylor, blah, 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 Scott Drew's got to get them in the mindset of let's go out and play ball. I think he's a hell of a coach, but he's going to have to coach his butt off, because everyone's gunning for them, and I don't think that they're the team to be gunned for. So that's something that's going to be important for what they do. I just dropped out of my head who the other one was.
Well, if you're thinking you want me to jump
go ahead. Go ahead, please, go ahead.
So, I was thinking about this, and I looked at the bracket, and one thing I'm thinking about, I'm looking at the South. As far as coaches is concerned, this is really important. The 7-10 matchup between Ohio State and Loyola Chicago.
Okay.
Loyola Chicago is a very good team. They move the ball around. They have really good guards. They like to get up and down. A lot of people say they can cause Ohio State problems because Ohio State has struggled with the last 5 games, for the last 5.
Right.
And you have E.J. Liddell, that is really probably one of the best players in the country. And they have a mixed bag of a lot of talent, but they've had big guys injured like Key, and some of the other people that have been out with different injuries. So it's been like a mixed bag for the coach, to come together with it, right? But the thing is like this, though, with the coach, comes down to this. If he can get, I think they have a chance, more than a good chance, against Loyola Chicago, because Holtman is it's like this. The problem Ohio State has usually with the teams that they lost to, unless it's a fluke or something crazy like against Nebraska, teams that are bigger than they are and more physical cause Ohio State problems.
Right.
If they can dominate them on the inside, Loyola Chicago could have a problem. I'm not sure that's the case here. Plus, I think E.J. Liddell is ready. It's probably going to be his last year. And he's like in his mind saying, I don't want to go out the way I went out last year against Oral Roberts.
Right.
So we already have a chip on the shoulder. So that's not going to be hard for Coach Holtman to do. So I think if he coaches them, he can do it well and get them ready, because they've shown you that they can beat teams when they're prepared and playing good basketball. They beat Duke earlier, which is not a fluke. They beat a good, very Duke team earlier at home. And the other reason why I say that Holtman is very important from the coach's standpoint is if he wins this game against Loyola Chicago and they move on to the next round, the next team that they would play probably would be Villanova. And if you know anything about Chris Holtman's basketball, his resume, he used to be the coach at Butler. And when Villanova won the national championship, like 2 years in a row, when they won the 1 year, but 2 years in a row, Butler and Villanova played a lot of basketball. So Chris Holtman, from his Butler days, is very familiar with Villanova and how they go about it. And not only that, he learned how to beat them even when they were national champions. And that was Holtman's MO when he was at Butler, which is how he got the Ohio State job. He would take a team that was supposed to be mediocre or not maybe the greatest team in the world, and he was like going to the land of the giants, and he was the giant slayer. That's what he did. So if you take Ohio State, that's the 7th seed, and let's say they get past Loyola Chicago, then you go against number 2 Villanova, and that's right in his wheelhouse.
Right.
If he coaches and do what he does to do, you go, oh my God, Ohio State's playing great. But this is a setup, so we'll see if he has their attention. This is perfect, in my opinion, for if you're looking for something. This is perfect for him to set it up. But it's going to take Holtman to grab them, get their attention, get them back in, and get them motivated, because if they do that, they can make a run. They can make a run where you go, okay, they make that run, they beat Loyola Chicago, they beat Villanova, and then they sit up and go, okay, well, hell, if Michigan wins Tennessee, we can beat one of them. And now we're at 16 going, yeah. Mm-hmm. But it's all about Chris Holtman and getting the guys going. I mean, everybody in this situation, all the way up to the 16, they can beat. They have the talent and the skill set. But Chris Holtman, and whether or not he can grab them, and particularly with using E.J. Liddell as the guiding light, you know, with Branham as well and the other guys that got over there, using them to get really fired up, say, hey, we didn't do well, we didn't finish well, but now let's jump around strong. That could be a dark horse. But it starts with Coach Holtman.
I think that one of the decisions he has to make is, how long do I stay with Justin Ahrens if he's not making shots?
You don't. You take him out.
Yeah, yeah. And it's like, this is no longer a chance to see, okay, you're my best shooter, but you haven't made a shot since December, and you're not giving us anything else. Somebody else get in there and do something.
Right. You got sportsmanship award. Let him keep clapping, because that's what you got. You cannot waste that time. You got to put other people in that can make a difference.
Right. If that's your job and you're not doing it, somebody else got to do it. All right. The reason I had to hesitate, because I said it was going to be 4, and it's 5. So it's 3 coaches from the SEC, and it's a 2 seed, a 3 seed, and a 4 seed. So the 2 seed is Auburn with Bruce Pearl. The 3 seed, now I just lost it again. Oops. The 3 seed is, I'm going to say it's Tennessee with Rick Barnes. Make sure I've got this right before I go out there and say something I don't need to say. I don't have a printout like you. I've got to use a spreadsheet, so excuse me for a second.
Well, at least you got the names right.
Well, I got the names right. I just want to make sure I've got that right. So Kentucky's a 2 seed, Auburn's a 2 seed, Tennessee is a 3 seed playing against Longwood, and the other is the 4 seed, Arkansas and Eric Musselman. Now, A, obviously they're all in the SEC, but B, they all have kind of the same MO of how they coach. We're going to go out there and stick it to you. And that's how you have to play in the SEC, or you don't get it done. I get that. But we've got enough history on all 3 of them to know that they have games where it just doesn't go. Musselman with Nevada or in the league, it's like suddenly it just all stopped. You know, that Nevada team, we had the Martin twins. They're like, these guys, this is a great team. And then that game comes where it's like nothing fires. And again, this is what I talked about Bruce Pearl earlier. There didn't seem to be, if there was a plan B, they didn't seem to know how to implement a plan B. We've seen Rick Barnes at Texas and other places where when it goes away, it goes away. And I know as a coach, it happens. I get that. But to me, it's pronounced for those 3 because they have 3 squads that can do some damage. Or they have 3 squads that can be looking on the sideline after the first weekend's over. So I think it all comes down to the coaches for those 3 teams and for those 3 brackets, really, to tell you the truth. Well, Tennessee's in a bracket with another higher seed. But again, that we think is going to go far. But those are the 3 you go, wait a second. They really have to get something done here, because if they don't, if it goes away or if the other team steps up to them, like we were talking about with Auburn, like I was talking with Auburn, if the other team steps up, it could be a long night real fast. We've seen Bruce Pearl teams just disintegrate. And this isn't a knock on Bruce Pearl at all. It's just that when a team steps up to him and smacks him in the face, they usually step up to the challenge and bully back. But sometimes they just fade away and they're down by 40 before you know it. And I see the same thing with the Rick Barnes teams, and I've seen the same thing with Musselman's teams. And this is not the time for that to happen. And I think it's the key for them, because if they do it right, they've got a chance to go a long ways. They're higher seeds. Auburn doesn't really face another real strong challenge like that. You said USC, which I agree with. Wisconsin, that's a Greg Gard thing. We can get into that another time. But then it's really up until you get to Kansas, way down at the end of the bracket. That's the way I see that. Looking at, I keep skipping on the wrong tab here. Looking at Tennessee, Tennessee could beat Villanova. They could beat the winner of the Ohio State-Loyola game. They could come out of that strong. And then it's like, okay, you get Arizona. They could beat Arizona, I think, or Houston or whomever else. We won't even get into Kelvin Sampson's history in the tournament, but there's a lot of things that go on there. So that could happen. Arkansas is playing pretty good ball. And we're talking about athletes that can play. That's great. And this is where you get into that weird bracket. Duke is a 2 seed. Are they really that solid of a 2 seed? Texas Tech is a 3 seed. Are they that solid of a 3 seed? And on the other end of the bracket, it's Gonzaga that, though we believe that they are now the team they're supposed to be, they still haven't, in my mind, proven that they're a legit, solid favorite the entire time they're out there. So there's a chance. I'm not saying Arkansas is going to the Final Four, but it's a possibility. So those 3 coaches really need to step up and make it so their teams are in the best possible position. And when there's adversity, and this is what I see with those 3 coaches, when there's adversity, sometimes their teams just go, well, not today. Well, you can't do that now. They've got to go all the way and make it work. So those are the 5 I have that, and I'm sure I could make it 64 or 68 real if I wanted to. But those are the 5 that, you mentioned Mike Woodson. Mike Woodson's got to prove that he's Mike Woodson. There's a reason why they brought me in at Indiana. There's a reason why I'm here. Shaka Smart. I left Texas to go to this job because I want to do something here. There's a Hubert Davis at North Carolina. You can say the same thing. A lot of people, Matt Painter's got something to prove at Purdue. A lot of these coaches have something to prove. Ed Cooley at Providence have something to prove. But I think those 5 that I came up with, again, I think Coach K is the big one. Coach K is the big one. Am I going out on the right note? Did I leave a year late? Are they listening to me? What's going on? Because you don't want to say, I don't think that the fire is out. That's not even close to what it is. But maybe he's just a year behind. I don't know. We'll see.
No doubt. So our next meeting is we're going to probably actually start doing some picks so people know what the hell we're talking about before the tournament. Yeah.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to people feel free to get the whatever app you can get, but I'm going to go down to the sports books and I'm going to get a kind of a consensus on what the odds are going to be and all that and what we can look at. So we'll probably reconvene, I would say, Wednesday. Sounds good. So we can kind of take a look at it and see. We've had the play-in games taken care of, and we've had a chance to see what's happening, who's healthy, who's not. We can kind of reconvene and see what's happening.
Yep. So then we're going to make some picks so y'all can get down to the nitty-gritty and start making some real big cash. If that's what you want to do, come see us. I'm telling you, it's worthwhile. First round, second round, and you want to be the big person in your office pool.
And we will call it ka-ching.
Cash at me.
Thanks again, folks. Again, this is going to become a regular occurrence on the Ultimate Sports Network, not just us, but some other people. We're going to start doing live shows, and we figured out how to do it on Twitch and on Facebook and on YouTube and all that. So you're getting tired of seeing us like you already are for other stuff, but you keep on coming back. So it's your fault. So too bad. Thank you, folks.